Hey everybody, welcome to the Tatiana Show, San Diego edition. I'm here in beautiful San Diego for Inside Bitcoins. Today's the first real day. Yesterday were some tutorials. So I'm here with Lisa Chang of Vanbex, and she's actually giving a talk right now. I think it's about gaming or something or other. But anyway, this conference looks really good. There's a lot of interesting people here giving talks and panels and stuff. It's nice to catch up with old friends. Last week we didn't have the show because I was in Mexico City. Mexico City was fantastic. I love the Latin American Bitcoin Conference. It's one of my absolute favorites of all time, and this was the third annual one. Last year they did it in Brazil, but I was in New Zealand with my Brave New Coin friends. But anyway, yeah, so Mexico City this year was really great. We went and saw some Nacho Libre, where you have the Lucha Libre, where you have the big fighting with the outfits. And there was a lot of dancing, and in general, it was really great. But I'm glad to be joined today with Josh Shigala from Voltoro, as usual. Hi, Josh. Nice to see you.
Hello, Tatiana. You look more beautiful than ever.
Oh, you are a good little charmer. Thank you. You look lovely as well. And I'm very happy to bring in my beautiful friend, Liz Reitzig, who I consider, I guess, my food guru. She knows everything about health. And some people are going to do their New Year's resolutions in January, but I think that we can take some tips from Liz for now. And I think what she does is she really integrates realistically healthy eating into your day-to-day life. Thank you, Liz, for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Tatiana.
So for my friends who don't know anything about you, Josh, really quick, you can introduce yourself, and then we'll have Liz give a little bit more of an intro because people probably already know you, Josh. You're on here with me
Well, yeah.
before.
I run a Bitcoin exchange for Bitcoin and gold, so that no one needs to trade into filthy fiat anymore. We can trade
filthy fiat.
Filthy
Very
fiat.
filthy.
We can stay in a truly private and an asset that isn't lent into existence, a proper true asset, not this crazy strange paper that we're all trying to get out of our lives. So it's that's fun, yeah. But I think Liz's what Liz is doing is amazing. I think yeah, introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, kudos to both of you for all your work in Bitcoin and bringing it to the mainstream. I've been working on food and food security and food access issues for 10 years now, making real, healthy, clean foods available to people and direct farmer to consumer access, and studying the nutrition angle on that the whole time as well.
Okay, Liz, so let's talk raw milk. That's my favorite topic.
All right.
Because, well, I'll tell Josh and the viewers about a little random story. So where was I coming back from? I was coming back from someplace, and I stopped by her house, and Liz took me around. We went to her little gardens that she had, and she was just picking all these fruits and vegetables, and I was really surprised at what a variety of things that she had. There just seemed to be a huge abundance of I don't know, that garden just had a lot of stuff in there. And you have 5 children, so you're cooking for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a very large garden at all. And then we ended up going back to Liz's, and she made me these eggs with raw goat cheese and all these freshly chopped vegetables from the garden, and she put so much butter on the pan. And I was thinking, how is this woman who's had 5 children, she stays really slim, she looks great, and she's eating these gigantic things of buttery egg goodness. And so it got us kind of talking, and it got me inspired to join a food co-op so I could get raw milk and some other raw dairy products. So why don't you tell me a little bit about this way that you're eating just real actual food?
Well,
very mystical.
I love that you're talking about the butter, because that's such a kitchen passion of mine. And I tell people sometimes I'll make something and bring it to a potluck or bring it to a dinner, and they'll say, well, how did you make this? And I say, well, first I start with a pound of butter. And they just sort of look at me like, what? But yeah, we eat a lot of butter. It's so delicious, and it's so good for you, and especially the raw. And if you have access to raw butter from grass-fed cows, that's even better than gold or Bitcoin.
I remember I was raw vegan for 4 years, and so and then I delved sometimes into animal products as well, here and there. And I was talking to an really old cow dairy farmer, and he was like, "Oh, I don't touch milk at all anymore. I don't touch it." He was a really Australian guy. "Oh, I don't touch it." I said, "What? Why?" He goes, "Oh, ever since this Louis Pasteur came along and pasteurized everything, everything's full of pus and it's disgusting, and and they could just make, they could just pump these cows full of anything because they can pasteurize it. It looks all nice, but under the hood it's awful." And I said, "Really? Yes. And what about raw milk?" "Yeah, love it, love it. But only from cows that have been treated well and being grass-fed and all the rest of it." And it was a real, seeing this old timer talking about how it used to be and how he refuses to consume modern farming method products.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, and something that it's important to make a distinction about, because there's two different types of raw milk. There's raw milk that's intended for pasteurization, and then there's the raw milk that's intended for human consumption. And the production models of each are completely different. I do not recommend raw milk from an industrial dairy's bulk tank. When you get raw milk, you want to make sure you're getting it from clean, healthy cows that are grazing on green grass or eating hay in the winter. That's the kind of raw milk that our civilizations have been built on, and that's the kind that small farms are producing today. That's what you want to look for.
Yeah, it's amazing when you see the amount of blood and pus and crap, because I have seen some videos of it that is just all, boiled out, and it's quite revolting when you think about what's in the normal milk.
Okay, moving on from that really lovely description. So one of the things that I noticed when Liz told me about raw milk was how unbelievably difficult it was to get. And, there's a website, what was it called? Realmilk.com, Liz?
Yes.
And realmilk.com basically has, you have your state, you pick out the farms that deliver to you, and they usually pick a city around you. And I have to say, it hasn't been the greatest experience because sometimes the farmers are late. You have to go that specific day. It's usually for me, it's 30 minutes from my house, and to have to leave my house, drive 30 minutes to go get milk that may not even be there, it's kind of annoying. That being said, I feel like when I go and I get the extra raw milk, and I'm traveling right now, so I'm not really eating healthy, but when I'm home, when I actually put the effort in and I get that extra raw milk, like I feel like I'm eating a lot healthier, because then I'm just being more mindful in general of all the different foods that I'm keeping in the house. So I will go to Whole Foods. But even now, after hanging out with Liz, like Whole Foods sucks. I just want some really, really good farm stuff. What about people who have a lactose intolerance? How does that work? What's the split?
Right, so lactose intolerance is actually something that the dairy industry invented with the pasteurization process. Because when you have raw dairy, whether it's milk or cream or butter, you have the lactase enzyme intact. And that's what helps our bodies with the digestion and absorption of the milk sugar, lactose. But when you heat something, when you heat milk, it destroys the enzyme. So then your body's left trying to cope with this milk sugar on its own, and most of our adult bodies are not equipped to digest lactose. That's why you have this lactose intolerance. But what it really is an intolerance to the kind of milk that Josh was describing, the pasteurized pus from these industrial farms.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I was on the plane over to Canada, and next to me was this guy, and I was chatting away, and he was saying, "Yeah, I'm lactose intolerant, but weirdly only in America. When I go back to Sweden, I don't have to take this tablet. I don't get fully bloated and gassy and all the rest of the stuff that comes with lactose intolerance." Yeah, but when he goes to the States, he gets it. So that I thought, that's kind of strange. But now that you say that, that's kind of interesting. It all makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and in Europe, the laws around raw milk are a lot better. So it's widely available throughout Europe. I'm not sure specifically how it is in Sweden, but overall the attitudes are completely different in Europe. And even in England, the royal family drinks raw milk, yet it's illegal here in many places and completely illegal in Canada.
Yeah, in Australia, you have to go to the pet food shop, and it's called Milk for Dogs, and it's just got pictures of a friendly person giving it to his dog, but everyone just goes there for the milk, and that's the loophole that they found to get around the ridiculous regulations. If someone wants to drink something absolutely natural and normal without all this nonsense behind it, but again, this is what's called regulation hacking, and getting around some of the nonsense that is forced onto us by people who think they know how to run our lives better than we do.
Right, exactly. And that's what Tatiana was speaking to. And Tatiana, when you're talking about the difficulty of the direct engagement, when you think about farmers and what area of expertise they've developed, they've spent their lives learning how to build healthy soils and taking care of animals. And so they're not necessarily the best at logistics or marketing or coordinating. So a lot of them, they try to get their product to the consumer directly, but you are going to have some of these things that require a little more effort, like some late deliveries, or you have to put your order in a week ahead of time. But it is, as you mentioned, Josh, it's how to work around these regulations that are so restrictive to getting us good, clean, healthy food that keeps our bodies healthy.
I have a question. So if you take raw butter and you freeze it, does that kill the live properties because it's frozen? I mean, isn't the benefit of raw butter that it's alive? And how is it different from cultured butter?
Okay, so freezing does not significantly impact anything. There's a few people on the fringes who say they don't want to eat anything that's ever been frozen, and they're going to have to go to even more extreme effort to make sure that they don't. And the difference between regular butter and cultured butter is with regular butter, you take the milk, you let the cream rise, you separate the cream, you whip that cream into butter. With cultured butter, you take the cream and you add a culture, or you just let it naturally culture, and that's where you're letting the bacteria that occur in it naturally, probiotic bacteria, you let them do their job, and they digest the little bits of the proteins and the sugars that are still present in the cream, in the fat. And then you take that cream that's been cultured and you turn it into butter.
Is that significantly healthier in any way? It just sounds kind of gross.
It's actually really good. Some people prefer it. It's a little bit healthier because you're getting rid of those last little bits of milk sugar and you're adding probiotics to it. So it's already a friendly probiotic food, but when you culture it, you're making it a little bit more.
But doesn't it taste like sour? Like
No.
sour butter? It sounds kind of, what does it taste like? Different? How does it taste any different?
It tastes a little bit different. It might have a little bit of a sour creamy taste to it.
So a tang. How long does this butter last in the fridge anyway? Any butter for that matter.
Butter, as long as it's been rinsed. So during the process of making butter, you get buttermilk as a side product. And some farms don't necessarily rinse the buttermilk off, and so that butter does not last very long. But when they do a really good job thoroughly rinsing the butter, it can last months. And you can freeze it
outside the fridge?
Well, I wouldn't put it outside the fridge for months. I do that maybe for a few days, put it back in the fridge, take it back out to get it soft again. But
I've seen it in water. Remember, like sometimes they have the containers where they put the butter in water, and I'm looking at it, but I think that the water seems to preserve it.
Well, if the water's kept at a cooler temperature, I mean, the idea being that you want to keep it cool, but still a little bit warm enough that it's spreadable. And butter's a pretty stable fat because it's highly saturated. So your saturated fats are more stable. That means they're going to hold up to heat better without becoming rancid. And butter's one of them. So it's pretty stable at room temperature. You could give it a few days at room temperature. In the fridge, you've got several weeks, couple months. In the freezer, it'll last quite a while.
Why do people think that butter and milk make them fat and maybe they don't?
Well, thanks to the CDC and the USDA dietary guidelines, we have all this misinformation and all this propaganda around butter and animal fats and saturated fats being bad for you. And it's all just propaganda. I mean, when you think about the beginning of it, it started with the advent of industrialized vegetable oils. So going back a ways, going back more than 100 years, you've got Procter and Gamble, and they were making candles that we needed to light our homes, right? Because we didn't have the electricity. And when the light bulb was invented, their candles weren't so popular anymore. But during the time that their candles had been popular, they got together with people who were manufacturing cotton. And the cotton manufacturers had all this waste material of the cotton seeds. They weren't going to use that in clothing. And so Procter & Gamble paid them and paid the chemists to come up with something for candles from the cottonseed oil. So what they came up with was crystallized cottonseed oil, Crisco. And they use that in candles. But with not needing candles anymore, with the advent of the light bulb, they took that same product, this waste material from cotton, and they put it in fancy packaging and said, oh, this is a health food. And they started marketing it to the Jewish housewives. They said, it looks like lard, it acts like lard, you can use it like lard. So people started switching to Crisco, and that's when the propaganda started. That was the rise of fake food. So here we have this incredible, good, healthy food of butter and actual, real good lard. And it was being replaced in people's cooking with this waste product from cotton manufacturing that had no relevance to human health at all. And now we know, of course, that's trans fats and it's terrible for us, but it's taken this whole evolution. But for years, people were told, eat Crisco, eat margarine instead of butter. It's better for you. But it's just all false.
Mm.
Wow, that sounds really disgusting.
Yeah.
What about, the yogurt-based butters? How are those bad for you? Like the Brummel and Brown one?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, butter is just as good a food as it can get. And I don't know why you would try to replace it with anything. I'm not familiar with yogurt-based butters. I can tell you that yogurt from raw milk from grass-fed cows is also great for you. It's going to help you readjust your internal ecosystem and your digestive bacteria. It's really good for you. I don't know anything about butter made from yogurt.
What would you say for like people with who have got pointers of higher cholesterol that they've been told from ever since the 80s, stick to margarine, stick to canola oils, stick to all these ridiculous oils because your cholesterol. How do you what's your advice for them?
Well, initially read a book called The Cholesterol Myths.
Yes.
There's a lot about this alarmism around cholesterol that's all false.
Because statins are so wonderful, aren't they? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, it is ridiculous, but when you look at the actual stats of high cholesterol and death rates or mortality related to that, when you lower cholesterol, you slightly lower the mortality rates due to heart disease, but you increase the mortality due to things like cancer and brittle bones. So it's a trade-off. I mean, everybody's going to die of something, right? And do you want to die happy and eating the good food that you love, or you want to die on chemo from cancer because you've stopped eating any good food and stopped enjoying life, right? I mean, it's kind of a choice, and there's a lot of evidence also showing that when you eat good, healthy animal fats, and I'm talking about fats from animals that are outside, on pasture, getting sunshine themselves, then that helps with your health across the board.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point because, most of the reason why I was vegan for so long was because the whole animal industrial complex is so despicable and so disgusting now that I just didn't want to be a part of it. I knew that there are some health benefits to it, and I actually felt just a lot better eating no animal products. I mean, I duck in and out here and there. I was never militant about it, but like a lot of people are. But I think I was always, look, if it's a wild deer that's being served up to me, or a wild swine or something like that, then of course I'll eat it. And also, you know, the love that's been put into it and all the rest of it by the chef. But I think, yeah, I think the health benefits of eating, being part of this despicable animal situation that we've got going on in the food chain, really is unhealthy. There's
Right.
no other real word about it, no matter what you do. And like you pointed out it before, if you get raw milk from a cow that's been totally abused its whole life and chained up and you know, on these machines sucking milk out all day long, it's just not going to be healthy at all.
Right. Right. Exactly. And you know, I was vegetarian for 5 years for the same reasons that you just stated. I did not want to participate in this food industrial complex where animals were mistreated so I could have a steak. And I knew there had to be a better way, and there is. It's going straight to the farm. It's going to the decentralized food system. And my involvement in Bitcoin, the same reasons. And there's so many parallels between Bitcoin and the real food movement and real food system, where you have something that's inherently, it's designed to be corrupt and to devalue human life and take away quality of life from humans and animals. And when you can go, like with Bitcoin, you're going and you're decentralizing money. Same thing with the real food movement. When you go direct to small farms or when you produce your own food, you're decentralizing that and you're going to where you're actually adding value.
Yeah, I think that's a good opportunity for disruption, is kind of an Uber style, something to help farmers distribute properly without this whole centralized mess of you know, that you get even with Whole Foods. You know, I mean, Whole Foods is amazing. It's really good, but at the same time, it's just the same old as it was,
Well,
but it's a better option.
to
Sorry,
give you a
Tatiana.
little context of how far my milk travels, right? Because when I came back to, you know, I live 20 minutes outside of Manhattan, so it should be really easy for me to get it. Number one, I'm paying about $8 a gallon for milk, and I'm paying a $5 fee to have the food ported over, anywhere from 5 to 10, 15, maybe even for a delivery fee. I'm paying $50 for the transportation. Now, when the guy is bringing the milk, he's coming once a week. He's coming from Pennsylvania, an hour and a half away, and he's dropping it off at several different places. And the thing is that, like, when you were talking about the Uber for milk, I got all excited. I said, yeah, then I could just get it whenever I want. But then I thought about the actual logistics, because you're not allowed to buy raw milk in New Jersey because it might hurt us. I'm very afraid. But no, you know, you have to bring it from Pennsylvania, and it takes a really long time. So
And you're not
even
allowed to buy
though,
it with Bitcoin either, because otherwise you need a license.
yeah, exactly. You'll probably need a license for Bitcoin. But either way, I think that it takes a lot of effort to bring it over. So there's a reason why it costs so much. But I do like going direct to the farm. I may get milk or any kind of dairy product at, like, if I got the top shelf stuff at Whole Foods, it would just be a few dollars less. And I would way rather give it to the farm because I know where it's
Right.
coming from, you
Well,
know?
yes, and when you're looking at pricing, it's really important to look at what you're getting for that price too. Because when you go to a place like Whole Foods or even any organic chain, unless they're stocking something direct from the farm, they're still getting it through a middleman, a processor, one of the co-ops. So what happens there is the farmer is not getting value for their product. They're getting way less than they even need for breaking even. So what we get is dairy farms collapsing everywhere and more centralization of the dairy farms. But when you go direct, it is going to be more expensive, partly because you're paying a price that keeps that farm in production, which has so many benefits. It has benefits to the community, it has benefits to the environment, has benefits to local rural economies, which then in turn have benefits to broader communities.
And this kind of goes back to me being inspired by getting my stupid raw milk. Like, I'm more likely to work out that week, or, you know, maybe not drink that third glass of wine, whatever. It kind of just puts you in a little bit of a different mindset. And I think it's very complementary to the goals of, being a liberty activist or working in Bitcoin. I mean, part of those endeavors for me is that pursuit of something better. And I think that you can extend it and be kind to yourself, because a lot of people drive themselves into the ground. They're just working too hard, and they're not taking good care of themselves. But if you're not going to take good care of yourself, then you're not going to be any good at, like, it's going to detract from your ability to produce properly as like a person.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Sorry, Liz. I was just also wanted to make this similar point, is that, all of us Bitcoiners and computer nerds and these sort of people that are attracted to Bitcoin and the technical side end up sitting for long periods, drinking coffee till no end, and really living not a very healthy lifestyle. And that's why I think having someone like yourself in the industry reminding people, look, get up, do some exercise, and also here's some good foods and some good ways to look up to them. Here's some myths, by the way, and here's how the myths started. And I hear these myths all the time. I mean, I remember, 5 years, 10 years ago, people were just obsessed with how coconut oil is terrible for you, and I was like, no, it's not. It's really good. Oh no, but it's saturated fat, and they're obsessed with this notion. But again, it was a myth which has now been totally toppled, because now people understand the benefits of coconut oil and how amazing it is, or raw butter, or these sort of things. That it's great to see someone out there really pushing the myth, myth busting, I guess.
Right. And, really good point on all of it. And I think that the real food movement and the Bitcoin and what's going on in the Bitcoin space, they really complement each other. Because what we're both working on, as I said before, is adding value to people's lives and creating a higher quality of life for people. And that does include sometimes reminding some of the computer guys to take a break and eat a healthy meal. But also, it's like, imagine what it would look like, and this is happening, when co-ops and farmers markets all start accepting Bitcoin, or when we have something that's similar to your project, but where it's actually backed by food or by a share in a farm. I mean, then we all get to be co-creators in creating the value of a system.
Can you talk a little bit more about what your experience has been in trying to utilize Bitcoin and the blockchain to improve that world, so to speak, and what do you see a little bit more? Just give me more about that.
Yeah, so I initially worked on a project called permacredits, and the goal with permacredits was specifically to use digital currencies to connect people to food sources, and in a way that was environmentally restorative, not just sustainable anymore. We need to look at restoration of our ecosystems. And there's a lot of good ideas that sprang from that. And I see a future in that, and especially in relating it to local complementary currencies for specific communities.
Yeah, I remember Adam B. Levine doing an interview with someone from the permacredits stuff years ago.
Right. Yeah.
It was a very early show. That sounded amazing.
It's a really great concept, and I think there's a lot there to work with and to create from.
So, Liz, if somebody wanted to, pay for food with Bitcoin at the farmer, why does the farmer care? I mean, dollars would be easier for him. In some ways, using a credit card, they're already familiar. What would be the benefit of incorporating cryptocurrency other than it just being, well, look, you can pay with this money?
Well, I mean, with any early adopters, they're going to understand the benefit of supporting a currency like Bitcoin or whatever currency they want to use in the digital space there. So I think the value is there for the farmer to understand it. Outside of that, a lot of farmers are farmers because they love being outside and digging in the dirt or having the slowness of working with the animals. And they're not quite up to speed yet on this new digital currency. So they're not going to necessarily understand the value of it yet. As it grows, as it becomes more popular, and as people as people within that space who use digital currencies look for farmers to support, I think we are going to see a broader adoption of it from the farms.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows that the first sort of thing for sale was alpaca socks, coming from an alpaca farm up in somewhere in, I've forgotten where it was. Tatiana, do you remember where it was?
No, but I remember thinking, why the hell do I want alpaca socks? And then I touched alpaca socks many years. Okay, it wasn't actually their socks. It was an alpaca. It was in Texas a few years later, and I remember touching the alpaca and thinking, I was wrong. What was I thinking? Of course I want socks made out of this animal. It was so soft and wonderful, and I was thinking I was a fool for missing my chance early on. But yeah, there's still time. It is the holidays, so.
Oh.
Yeah, and Tatiana, you touch on another point too, which is whether it's a steak or a gallon of milk or alpaca socks, whenever we are going direct and supporting a farmer in whatever it is they're producing, alpaca socks or wool pillows or milk or steaks, whatever it is, we're actually supporting that farm staying in production, and we're paying for the value that offers and a higher quality of life for all involved.
Yeah, and this is a really good point, and I think shout out to the farmers, because we as consumers try to do our best and go pay above market price, which is a very hard thing to get the common person to do, to support things that are quite kind of separate, kind of further away from your own lifestyle, and that's to help build a system. You'll pay a bit more for milk because if we all do that, then eventually it'll become down in price and people will live better and all the rest of it. But please return the favor to think of the bigger picture as well, and take that day or two, take that, get people around to help you understand Bitcoin and join that evolution in money as well, because that's all part of the same thing. And learn about these well, I don't want to say revolutions because they're not violent. They're true evolutions, and they're beautiful. So jump on board.
Indeed.
Do you guys think that we're being spoiled little princesses, though? Like, we want all of our food to be pure. I mean, I don't know if this is, like, I don't know how, well, no, credit card debt. That's how I afford raw milk, right? But I don't think that that's affordable for a lot of people. Like, what can people do that are on a budget in order to continue to eat healthy? Like, where do you think that they should spend? Say they could pick out 5 ingredients for their kitchen that are the most important components of a good, healthy diet. What do you think, Liz?
Well, I want to address cost for a second here, because if you have a budget for soda, whatever you're spending per month on soda, take all of that and move it into raw milk or something else that's actually beneficial. And then you'll find that you've got plenty of money. Most people. There are some people out there saying, oh, I don't spend any money on soda. Good for you. Whatever that particular vice might be, though, that you know is not benefiting your health, it's not benefiting anyone, maybe move some of that budget into something that is sustainably produced, does add value to your local economy, and adds value to your own body through health. So this affordability myth is another one of those myths, because there's things that we all do that we know are not good for us that we can put into something that's healthy and beneficial in all those ways.
Do food stamps work at farmers markets? I kind of think that they do, right?
Many farmers markets take food stamps.
Oh, good. Well, that would be an option. I mean, I don't know. Finding a farmer's market can be a little tricky, but we have the internet now, so that's not even an excuse. What I noticed when after I came and visited you was that even though I was on a really tight budget, I'm cooking for one, so I would just buy 1 or 2 main components of the kitchen that week. Like, I'd get really good salt and I'd get a really good olive oil.
Right.
And then that would be it for a week and a half. And then next time I would get a thing of really good butter. Yeah, it was
Right.
$12 for a thing of butter, but it lasts me for 2 months. And every time I use it, I think, oh, I'm so good to myself. And actually, it makes me better to myself. It makes me more, I don't know. I think that when I travel, I'm a hot mess. And then when I'm at home and I can control my little food sources, even though I might think, oh, I shouldn't put on this much butter, but I'm like, oh, but it's real butter. And it's okay to have something real and nice. And then maybe I don't want to get like a nasty candy bar because I think of all the gross things that are, I'm not into candy bars so much anymore because I know that they're made out of fake stuff. I'd rather have a real thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and the other thing people can do is, support projects like, there's a website, I don't know if it's still around actually, I haven't been to it for a while, but findaspring.com, where you go and harvest your own spring water. That's, it's free. You just go and you rock up with your bottles and fill up on beautiful water that's been flowing through minerals and down mountains and stuff, and most of the time, if other people are drinking it, it's okay, and especially if it's running, it's fine. But there's all sorts of things people can do, and I really back you up on this unaffordable myth that even the organic, a lot of the organic stores, they have boxes for that where the food is getting a little bit older, and everything's half price in there, or you can go to farmers markets at the end of the day if you can't afford it and pick up the deals there. There's lots of tricks to get into, and if you're raising the next generation, raise them with good food, because that studies have shown that that IQ and everything, and being able to focus, if you haven't got all this pop and nasty stuff in your system, kids can focus and actually learn what's put in front of them, instead of being totally distracted and out of control.
You mean a diet of soda and Ritalin isn't good for children? I don't understand what is this far and crazy talk you have over there.
You forgot the Skittles, Tatiana.
I do love some Skittles. I haven't given those up.
Well,
all right, so the top 5. Oh, go ahead. I still want the top 5, but after. Okay. Sorry.
Well, what Josh just talked about is another example of the value you get from real, good, healthy foods, where you're going to get your children, as they learn, they're going to have a better opportunity to learn when you're fueling their bodies properly. I mean, it's so common sense, but it's something people forego often. So the top 5 foods, right? Yeah. So get vegetable oils out of your kitchen. Vegetable oils, except for olive oil and coconut oil. But
what about safflower oil, sunflower? Those seem all right.
Well, they're mediocre, but they are still easily damaged. So they become rancid quickly. And they're not good with high heat. You want to replace those vegetable oils, especially the industrially processed ones, soy, corn, canola. Those are also GMO oils. You want to replace those with good, healthy fats, animal fats if you can, butter, lard, coconut oil. And
in Germany, they're not GMO.
Right. Europe has completely different standards on GMOs than America does. And that's great. You're so lucky about that. Here, you got to be careful on everything. So replace your vegetable oils, first thing. And I highly recommend switching from conventional industrial dairy to raw, or eliminating it. I think that eliminating dairy is better than drinking the processed stuff. Taking processed sugar out of your diet. I know that's painful for a lot of people, but eliminating white sugar, corn syrup, sugar from sugar beets, which does not have to be labeled as such, but it is also GMO. Sometimes something will just say sugar, and it can be sugar from sugar beets. So just get out all processed sugars and replace it with honey, maple syrup, or coconut sugar.
And be careful with cheap honey, because a lot of honey is not actually honey. It's just fake honey.
Right. Know your source. Know your source. Switch from... Now, do you want like 5 really specific things, Tatiana, or can it be sort of broader categories?
I'm going to give you free reign here. Whatever you think. It could be broader categories. I think, what I was thinking was one would be water. right? Because that's something that, you know, I got a Berkey filter a
Right.
couple, like, I don't know, 8 months ago or whatever, when my water from my sink started tasting like toilet. It was driving me insane. And I was like, F it, I'm getting this overpriced thing, but I use it for everything. And I started thinking, you know, it's weird because you cook your pasta, you cook your vegetables with water from the sink, and I don't know, but then you worry that I guess sometimes they don't have enough minerals. So what do you think about the water supply?
Oh, I get clean water too. That's something that's like background for me, so it's not always as forefront as some of the other things I discussed. But clean water is super important. If you're getting your minerals through raw milk or bone broth, I'm not as concerned about adding minerals back into the water, but if you are concerned about that or you just like the flavor, you can get different kinds of minerals that are the correct proportion for our bodies, and you can add that back into the water, a few drops a gallon, and you're good to go. But yeah, clean water, super important. I'm glad you brought that up. And filters or reverse osmosis.
Definitely. That chlorine is nasty. I come originally from Australia, and we have also fluoride and chlorine in the water, and it's really, you go, when I smell it now, it's just like, whoa, I'm at a swimming pool, like it's so horrible. And I always thought chlorine had to be in water because of the pipes and everything, but here in Berlin, there's no chlorine at all, and no fluoride, and it, you know, if there is some sort of bloom of bacteria somewhere or algae, they'll cut off that section of pipe and just flush some chlorine through it, get everyone in the neighborhood to turn on their taps to make sure it's not consumed, and then it's done. And it's just amazing. And now I really notice the difference.
Wow.
And the thing with chlorine is that it destroys all your gut bacteria, folks. So if you're destroying your gut bacteria, you know, they say that your gut has as many nerve endings and as your spinal cord or parts of your brain, is that it's another brain, and by constantly flushing chlorine through it, you're really destroying another brain, really.
That was one of the main things that Liz told me about, because, you know, when I was dealing with my voice problems, she was like, you need to get your gut bacteria in shape, Missy. And I was like, what? And she was saying that the gut is the origin of all disease. So, Liz, why is that important? What does that mean? What bacteria? Sounds kind of gross.
Well, like Josh said, I mean, that's so important. And Tatiana, like, it cannot be overemphasized. And new research points to a relationship between our gut and our gut bacteria and how well we function, our brains function. And so there's this whole body of evidence showing that children who have moderate to severe learning disabilities, what they have is an imbalance with the bacteria in their digestive system. So when you get that back in balance through eating the right foods and taking various probiotics, you get restored function in your thinking and your clarity. People go from being depressed to being happy again, and learning is easier. Like it all shifts with that rebalancing of the microbiome in your digestive system.
A great way, folks, and I think you can talk to this as well, is fermenting your own foods.
Right.
That's again, if you're worried about money, fermented foods is as easy as grabbing a cabbage, chopping it up, putting it in a jar with a little bit of salt, in some layers. You check it out on YouTube, and making your own. And it's so cheap, and it's so full of gut bacteria. Right. I mean, you'll probably you know, be a bit gassy for the first week as your gut bacteria starts to become neutral again, can become better, but after that it settles and it's all good again. But again, you don't need to pay, you know, hundreds of dollars paying for all these probiotic pills when you can make yourself or drink raw milk and have yogurts and make these fermented foods. What do you think of fermented foods, Liz?
Love them, and you're so right on about how it adds the probiotics back into our systems. And really importantly, all this food that we're talking about tastes great. And so it's not like you need to sacrifice flavor or variety or anything for great health. You get it all. You get to eat your burger with your sauerkraut It's just a grass-fed burger, and it's homemade sauerkraut. And looking at it in terms of it really is this holistic approach to eating where you get to support farms, you get to support your own health, and you get the flavor, the variety, the robustness of having these delicious meals.
How do you know that if you're making a fermented food? Because, okay, so I thought, oh, maybe I can make my own kombucha. But how do I know that I'm not making some crazy monster bacteria that's going to crawl out in the night and try and eat me? I mean, seriously, I could mess it up. I could make myself sick. What if the bacteria that I'm growing is deadly?
Well, for kombucha, you start with a culture. And so like if that culture starts to get bad, you're gonna be able to tell immediately by the smell. It's gonna smell off.
Who's gonna know? It's an inherently stinky thing in the first place. It's bacteria.
Well, it's yes, and I mean it's also yeasty, right? So you can smell the difference between a good kombucha because it might you'll smell the sourness, but it's not going to be something that smells revolting. That's going to like immediately make you want to pull away from it. But if it goes bad, it will.
Yeah, human's nose is amazing like that, isn't it? You sort of We've grown up. There's thousands of years of heritage of understanding of going, oh, just our bodies going, oh, no, that's wrong.
Yeah, and it goes back to trusting the self. I mean, we're taught in this culture from a very early age that we need to rely on experts and tools for everything. But you don't. I mean, you can tell a temperature of something that you're cooking. You can tell by feel. I mean, our bodies are at 98 degrees. So if it's really hot to the touch, it's quite a bit above that. Same thing with, testing, like if you're making kombucha, if it smells fine, if you're not revolted by it, it's good. I mean, you do know, and I want to discourage this notion that we need to revert to experts or tools or testing for everything, because we don't.
And we have access to experts anyway. If you follow a good recipe on YouTube, I mean, these experts are all making videos and explanations and instructions on how to make these things. So if you follow it, it's pretty hard to mess up.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, we need a magic word. We always have a magic word on this show for the listeners at LTB because, we broadcast on Liberty.me, but we have our LTB feed. So I think that our magic word or phrase should be gut bacteria. Are you guys approving this message?
Is that one word?
It's 2 words. GUT bacteria. All right. Okay, continuing on. So, all right, we got to get our guts in shape. What else?
Yeah. Well, do you want to go back to the 5 kitchen items?
Yeah, the five kitchen items. I feel like we keep getting derailed, but we're okay.
Right. So we talked about switching vegetable oils for nutritious, nutrient-dense animal fats and coconut oil, getting rid of all processed sugars and replacing with honey and maple syrup. Good honey, as Josh pointed out. Water, the importance of water, getting all processed dairy out, and if you can, switching to raw. And what Josh touched on, I would go with either that or adding in bone broth. So either start fermenting vegetables or start making your own stock.
What's up with bone broth? It sounds, again, like a really kind of a creepy, hard to make food. How do you make it?
It's so easy. You take bones from, like if you cook a whole chicken, or even if you have access to chicken necks and backs, or if you can get bags of beef bones at any farm that has beef. And you just put them all in a pot and you cover it with that good, clean, fresh water, and you cook it up overnight. You can add whatever vegetables you want or none at all. You can add celery, carrots, onions, garlic, parsley, or not. And at the end of it, you cook it for 12 to 36 hours on a low simmer. And at the end of it, you have this amazing bone broth where during the process of cooking, it breaks down and it pulls the minerals out of the bones. And it imparts them into the broth. So all the minerals that our bodies need and our bones need are there in the stock. It's also incredibly rich tasting. So you're going to get this nice meaty flavor that you can then use to flavor any other foods. And if the bones you're using, if they have connective tissue or joints in them at all, you're also going to get really nice gelatin which helps us with our joints, our hair, our skin, our nails. I mean, you can go on and on and on with the health benefits. But this bone broth is something that's so good for your gut. It helps restore that balance of bacteria. It's so good for the minerals in your body, the balance there, and its flavor.
Is it tasty? Is it good?
It's very tasty, and it's versatile. You can use it for soups. You can reduce it and use it for sauces. It adds that umami taste. That's some people use MSG to create that taste. MSG is a neurotoxin. You want to get rid of that. But you can make bone broth, and you can use it for all kinds of flavorings.
Gee, someone needs to rebrand that, though. I mean, bone broth, it sounds just,
Sounds really morbid.
It's
bone broth.
I get it. You can call it stock, chicken stock, beef stock, whatever.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll think of other uses for it, and people can kind of, I'm sure you have like recipes and stuff on your website, Nourishing Liberty.
I do. I'm not sure if I have one for stock, but I can go ahead and get one.
I think that you should make one because, winter's coming. Everybody wants to stay warm. One thing that we didn't touch on was just how dangerous the world of real food is. And it's actually a victim of the state oftentimes. You had told me about a story a couple weeks ago. Maybe you want to tell our listeners a little bit about the darker side of the food industry, other than the fact that we're being fed pussy milk with blood in it. What other terrors await us?
Are you talking about the situation in Canada?
Yeah, I would like to know about the Canada situation.
So some of our farmers who produce real food and raw milk are deliberately and aggressively targeted by the government. Here in the U.S., we've had several instances of armed raids against farms. And in Canada, there's one farmer in particular who's undergone 21 years of harassment and repeated charges. He's now facing extensive criminal charges for his role in producing raw milk and in protecting other farmers who are producing GMO-free organic foods.
God, he sounds like a terriblest. That's just a food terrorist. I mean, it's just nonsense, isn't it?
It is nonsense, except for the very real consequences it has on people's lives.
Yeah.
And Michael Schmidt is the Canadian farmer. The farm is Glen Colton Farm. And actually 3 years ago, he and 4 others were charged with pretty significant charges because of a shepherdess they helped. This shepherdess was producing a heritage breed of sheep called Shropshire, and she was accused of one of them having scrapie. None of them tested for it, but anyway, the Canadian government put a kill order on all of them. And the day that the kill order was to be executed, the sheep were gone from the farm, and there was a group that called themselves the Farmers Peace Corps, and they had said that they were taking the sheep into protective custody until a more humane solution could be found. And Michael, along with 3 others, were charged with numerous counts, including criminal conspiracy. And they've all been going through the process, and they're in the process right now, each of them facing up to 10 years in prison if they are convicted. So it's that kind of action.
That sounds crazy, and like it's not even happening because it's just so ridiculous. What can people do in order to help with that situation?
Well, I think the most important thing people can do across the board is start supporting your local farms. Go to any of the resources, realmilk.com.
What about particular victims?
What about what?
What about these people specifically that are being targeted? I mean, they're having their livelihood destroyed. Other than, of course, sure, you want to support local farms and stuff, but what about those people? I mean, how can we help them?
Well, there's crowdfunding set up for their legal defense, and that's pretty important. And showing up when there's actions, showing up when there's a hearing or a trial, physically being there and showing support is always a good way as well for those. But for those who cannot be there, donating to their legal defense means a lot.
How can people find out about where to show up and can you donate in Bitcoin?
I don't think we have a Bitcoin donation set up yet, but I'll look into that. There's
That'll be a good excuse to get it done too.
yeah. There's an Indiegogo campaign set up right now, and it's I can put the link in, but it's if you Google Indiegogo sheep case, it comes up first, and it's put on by the Canadian Constitution Foundation. I've also written about it several times on my blog, so if you look it up there, you can find it. And if you Google Michael Schmidt and Glen Colton Farms, it comes up.
Do we just call our representatives because, interested they are in representing our views? Do we say to them, hey, can you maybe stop busting farmers and stuff? Because that seems sort of useless. What kind of pressure can we as citizens put on there? Is it that we need to join these larger groups? How do you know which groups are really doing the right thing? I think that sometimes people wrap themselves in the flag of food safety, but it's really some sort of a different thing. How can you weed your way through it?
That is such a great question, and something I've been tackling recently myself. I say go direct as much as you can. Know your farmer, have a direct relationship with them, and participate in some of your own food production.
Is there websites people can go to find a farmer? Because I feel like if I was to try to find a farmer, I wouldn't know where to go, and then the idea I'd get distracted in life and go on and shop normally because I've forgotten about the podcast. Is there a way that you can jump online now, find something, and then continue on that action?
Absolutely. There's all kinds of resources. There's farmmatch.com, 1000 eco farms, 1000 is a number. Eat Wild, they're a much older site, so they're a little bit, some sources might not be updated, but they've got a lot of sources on there. Realmilk.com for all things related to raw milk. Local Harvest, of course, but again, a much older site with some outdated material.
And are they listed on Nourishing Liberty? Can people find these sort of sources through you?
FarmMatch is. There's some I don't list just for my own reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's good guides available, and I can put together a more comprehensive guide as well.
Yeah, fantastic. I think it's a really, really important thing, and I calling your representatives is just a joke. It's better to act on yourself and really act on it, because making a silly phone call to some magical man who's not going to do anything is ridiculous. So yeah, I really back you up on that in supporting these people.
I'm really glad that we had a chance to all get together today. This was a really good show, and I'd love to have you back on in the new year. Maybe we could come up with some sort of concrete, I don't know, some sort of way that we can continue our education about food, because I think that it's the building block of how we're going to go through our days going forward. So I want to stay youthful and beautiful. So I'll be checking in with you in the new year. Thanks so much, Liz, for coming on the show. Liz, where can people find out more about you? It's nourishingliberty.com. What about your Twitter and your social media?
Twitter is @NourishLiberty, and Facebook is Liz Reitzig.
Awesome. Okay, Josh, what's going on with you? Anything? Any news over there?
Yeah,
Final words for our audience.
People are loving trading between on Voltoro. It's really exciting. We're seeing more and more trading volume, so it's really, really cool, and seeing a lot of trading volume out of developing countries, which is fantastic, because that's what it's all there for, is banking these unbanked, allowing these people to jump out of this ridiculous, corrupt monetary system that we've got. So I'm super excited, and we're working hard here in Berlin and London, so it's really cool.
Excellent. Okay, everybody, I'm going to go off to Inside Bitcoin San Diego. Next week, we're going to have Lisa Chang of VanBex, and then I think Jonathan Chester of Bitwage. So that'll be really cool. We'll be chatting with them for the holidays. If you guys want holiday music, I have a holiday album you can buy on iTunes, or you can buy on my site for Tatiana coin, dollars, Bitcoin, whatever. It's called For the New Year, and I have to say there's a lot of really pretty songs on there. So it's always nice at the holidays. Oh, yeah. Have you heard it? Yeah, it's nice. I even have a
Yes.
song in Polish singing Lulajże Jezuniu. It's really pretty. And then what else? If you need me for advertising and marketing for the Bitcoin space, cryptomediahub.com, Liberty.me. Thank you very much for hosting us as always. Shout out to my crew at LTB and the listeners over there. We'll see you guys next week. That we've got some really good shows coming up. So we hope to see you next time. Bye. Thanks.
Thanks, Tatiana.
Peace.